good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming today. Welcome to Reading Africa, an afternoon of West African literature, and this is a 2025 West Africa semester event featuring Sigma Tau Delta members and friends. Sigma Tau Delta is our English Honor Society. I am Amy Gates, an Associate Professor of English for our local chapter of Sigma Tau Delta, which is now in its 47th year on campus. Sigma Tau Delta first began contributing programming to the international themed semesters in 2018, during my first full year as the advisor. Since Tales, Trolls, and Thrillers, a night of Nordic storytelling, which was a very snowy night, it turns out, we've been proud to research and share literature of the country or region that is the fall semester's international focus each year. In addition to the readings, we have hosted an annual fall book club in conjunction with the themed semester. This fall, we are reading a short story collection called Happiness Like Water by Nigerian-American author Chinelo Okparanta. I have show and tell items here. And a coming-of-age novel titled Aluta by Canadian author Adwa Bodoy. Information about both book club events is at the top of the list on the back of today's program, as well as in the West Africa semester brochure. I want to acknowledge this year's Sigma Tau Delta officers who took the lead in selecting the pieces you'll be hearing today and writing author bios. President Madison Ditzler, Vice President Ren Wilkerson, Secretary Gabriela Sanjour, Treasurer Shelby Post, and Social Media and Publicity Coordinator Isabel Walker, who also designed our posters and the program flyer for today. I also want to thank Spiva Library Assistant Library Director Amber Carr, who helped me vet many West African books in late spring and early summer, and who has organized this space for us and today's refreshments. I also want to thank Collections and Content Services Specialist Melissa Forsyth, who ensured that in addition to some physical copies of the book club books, we have multiple ebook copies of each of the book club selections, up to 100 simultaneous readers, so there is no reason not to join us for the book club. I also want to thank Dr. Zach Watson, Chair of Language and Literature, for his ongoing support of Sigma Tau Delta initiatives, Dr. Bill Fisher, the Spring 2025 Interim Director of the Institute of International Studies, who included us when creating the programming, Dr. Becca Shriver, the Executive Director, and Brian Palmer, who's here at the back of the room, the Administrative Assistant for the Office of International Education, for their support in executing these events this semester. And finally, I want to thank all of you for joining us in our exploration of West African literature. According to the United Nations, the 16 West African nations include Benin, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast, Liberia, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and Togo. While these nations differ vastly in population sizes, publishing resources, representation in English translation, and more, it was important to us to represent all 16 nations. So each individual reading will be short, don't worry, but it will help us to demonstrate in a small way the breadth of West African writing. In an essay called West African Literature in English, Beginnings to the Mid-70s, S. Dan Izvaibai, I even practiced that, notes that the literary tradition of West Africa has been shaped by individual cultures reacting to multiple and repeated external contacts over time. He asserts that these interlocking forces and layers mean that, quote, writers borrow so freely across cultures that it is not always possible to determine the essential African element from the invasive or the syncretic product. Each of the major literatures is the product not of any one tradition, not even of one as dominant as English colonial culture, but of live traditions that are always available to creative writers, even when they are inactive. As Wolye Shoyinka puts it, the past exists now. While this syncretism makes sense, we would do well to resist seeing West African literature as a homogeneous entity. In his 2022 book, Africa is Not a Country, Notes on a Bright Continent, Dipo Faloyan reasserts the diversity of contemporary Africa. The first epigraph he offers for his book is in square brackets, and I quote, square bracket, insert generic African proverb here, ideally an allegory about a wise monkey and his interaction with a tree, or the relationship between the donkey and the ant that surprisingly speaks to grand gestures of valor. Sign it off, ancient African proverb. End quote. We probably recognize that generic sort of nod to a culture we don't know much about, don't we? We might also recognize that we can work to do better. Sudanese-British journalist Zainab Banawi begins her 2024 book, An African History of Africa, by writing, quote, "Everyone is originally from Africa, and this book is therefore for everyone. Africa is the birthplace of humankind." Her fascinating and very readable book acknowledges the effects of imperialism, slavery, and colonialism, and how the world's sense of African history has been shaped and limited because it was written mostly by Western historians, missionaries, and explorers, as she puts it. Over a period of 7 years, Badawi visited more than 30 of the 54 African countries, visiting sites and interviewing people from academics to ordinary engaged citizens in her pursuit of a first-hand experience of Africa's history from the perspective of Africans. While our research pales in comparison, we follow in that spirit. Rather than try to tell you what West African literature is, a fool's errand, I turn to the readers who will give us a sense of West Africa's literature from the perspective of West African writers. Our selections today come from the 20th and 21st centuries to give you a taste of modern West African writing. If you would like to hear African stories with older origins, I encourage you to attend the West African Folk Tales at MSSU on October 9th at 10 a.m. in the Ron Richard Athletic Center. Notice that PSA right there. For now, though, with acute awareness that we cannot truly do justice to the multiplicity of voices, the storytellers and poets from West Africa, we are proud to bring you a selection of West African writing. To begin today's reading, please help me welcome Lexi Brown.
Right. Hello. My name is Lexi Brown. I'm a senior in English literature. I'm an editor for Missouri Southern student literary magazine, Bordertown. But instead of talking about me, because West African history and storytelling has become so significant to me during the semester, I just wanted to say a little bit about what I've gleaned from the semester so far. And I'm very grateful that we're reading and celebrating these stories and poems of resistance today. So this semester, I've had the opportunity to learn about West African history through literature, film, and folklore. What I've realized is particularly important about West African storytelling traditions is their role in cultural preservation, resistance against colonial forces, reparations, and self-determination. What I've learned about the incredible role of West African storytellers like griots, how stories are told orally have survived centuries and through the transatlantic slave trade. We've learned that Africa is in fact not a country or a dark continent, that even the drawing of borders can be an oppressive force, and learning all of this has inspired me to dig deeper in understanding histories and perspectives that are often suppressed in Western classrooms, and to learn the histories through the lens of the people who experience it. So, I'm reading from Veronique Tajo. She is a writer and poet and novelist from the Ivory Coast. In 1979, Tajo began teaching English at the University of Abidjan until 1993. Notably, in 1998, Tajo participated in the project titled Rwanda, Writing for the Sake of Memory, with a group of African writers who traveled to Rwanda to testify to the Rwandan genocide and its aftermath. In more recent years, Tajo has held workshops in writing and illustrating children's books in Mali, in Benin, Chad, Haiti, Mauritius, French Guiana, Burundi, Rwanda, the United States, and South Africa. Okay. This is poem 3. You are here, you are over there. The world is divided, but when you gather together your loves, there is no differences. All right. Next, we have another author bio. Cape Verdean author Dina Salusho is heralded as the first published female novelist and the first writer to have a book translated into English in Cape Verde. Her works include Morna Eram Ashnotish, The Madwoman of Serrano, published in 1998 and translated into English in 2019. Filias o Viento and Filios de Deos, Veromar. Thematic elements in her literature include post-colonialism and exploring the intricate and varied experiences of women. This is a selection from The Madwoman of Serrano. This is the story of Serrano and Geronimo, but also of Genoveva, a woman who turned 46 without knowing much of what will be recounted here. She had lost her memories, many of them painful, and though she tried hard to recover them, they were buried too deeply. Then one stormy night, a strong wind blew her into an unfamiliar neighborhood and brought countryside smells that reminded her of a spring she'd once known. It is also the story of a young woman who helped the midwife christen the village and knew all of its secrets. Secrets that have found their way into this narrative by means we cannot reveal. No man, woman, outlaw, or beast would claim her for a child, adopt her as a daughter, or make her a woman. So she took her revenge by cursing every living creature in the valley, everything that had conspired against her and everyone who called her the Madwoman of Serrano. Using unknown arts, she would disappear, or at least vanish from the land of the living. At the age of 33, having seen all she had wished to see and heard all she needed to hear, she would reappear again, age 9, belonging to no one, of no fixed time or abode, both woman and child. This is also the story of Felipa and how she got her name. One fine morning that turned into several days of wailing and anguish over a birth believed premature. Felipa spent the best part of her infancy in the grip of silence, and even after her tongue broke loose, she refused to give voice to certain sides of her womanhood. It is a story then, like many others, of an unknown time and place, of everywhere and of always, a story in which women and men are crushed by too much beauty or, more commonly, too much cruelty. That is all.
Hello, my name is Grace Testerman, and I am currently a senior here at Missouri Southern State University, majoring in secondary and middle school education with a focus in English literature. Although I'm originally from the DFW area of Texas, I have called Joplin home for the last 10 years. I am very grateful to be part of this community. I've had a passion for reading and teaching since I was probably in kindergarten. There's something magical about the way literature opens up new worlds and perspectives, and I've always known that I wanted to share these magical moments with the younger generations. This spring, I'll be student teaching before graduating and beginning my career as an English teacher, which is both exciting but also very nerve-wracking. What I love most about studying literature, however, is the opportunity to explore diverse voices and stories. Recently, I've been drawn to West African literature through my course here at Missouri Southern. And through the English department here, I have also developed a deep interest in Native Hawaiian literature, particularly the perspectives of Native Hawaiian women. These genres have expanded my understanding of storytelling and power of literature to preserve culture and share experiences across time and space, and I am very honored to be reading for you today. Today I'm going to be reading a poem from Yosef Gayi, who was a Mauritanian French language poet and historian. He was born in Katy, Mauritania in 1928. He was the president of the Mauritanian Writers Association. He also became an important official after Mauritania gained its independence in 1968. He was later put in prison due to his critical opinions against the government of his country. He died in Wulata prison in September 1988 at the age of 60. This is The Meaning of Circus by Yosef Gai. Distant carillons of the great copper clock veiled echoes of bugles and the song of crowds. Choir of great communal feasts, syncopated applause descending into the depths along green abysses. We climb back up the dreams to the blue height of stars, all the way to the sonorous circus tiers, resplendent in light. Now we're back in the front rows of the grand circle and its heavy red drapes, and bathed in pink sunsets where slight whiffs of dead roses float. The distinguished and smiling gladiators are still there, on the lookout for wild animals and shadows, their great wrestler torsos masked with fine silks. The call rises in anguish toward far meridians of human treason. Here we are at the hearings of grand indictments on those contending on bronze high warp carpets and muddy sands. We remain voiceless on the shores of other seas, our gazes fixed on the horizons over there under the tropics and the spirit of the abysses. The Hottentrot tethered to his hills of the Transvaal, and my Texan brother outsmarting his troubles at the threshold of nightclubs. The Kakongo from Angola in his death-dealing marquee, and my brother in Arizona soaked in tequila. Spatters on the other side of the Kalahari, and my other brother at the forbidden threshold of his native Palestine. And the prostrate crowd suddenly rises, scrutinizing the faint light in the east where the silhouettes of mercenaries are moving. We sharpen our lances, humid from easy dews, lying in wait for shadows come down from the sky toward Bissau. Our elite lancers charging faraway citadels. Behind the great gorilla, the great circus shuts up and watches the distinguished gladiators descending into the arenas of this night so high and spattered with knowing stars. We shiver in unison with the hours, toward those other seashores shaken by thunderstorms heavy with the sense of jungles and swamps. Smith and Nicomo, Salazar and Roberto, Verward and Lutuli, great puddles of night in the clearings of Kivu, screech of conniving rockets returning from monsoons of violence. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shelby Post, and I'm from Joplin, Missouri. This is my second year being treasurer for Sigma Tau Delta. I'm also a graduate student in the data analytics program. Overall, this is my 5th year at Missouri Southern. I just graduated with my bachelor's degree in May. My favorite literature to read is fantasy fiction or poetry. I enjoy writing poetry as a form of journaling or self-expression. After my graduate program, I'm considering learning more about possibly becoming a professor or working in research. The first selection I'll be reading is an excerpt from Murder in the Cassava Patch by Bai T. Moore from Liberia. Bai T. Moore was a Liberian poet, novelist, folklorist, and essayist. Moore held various cultural, educational, and tourism posts both for the Liberian government and for UNESCO. He was also the founder of Liberia's National Cultural Center, with his most famous novella being Murder in the Cassava Patch, which is known as a Liberian literary classic. Shortly before his death, Moore was appointed Liberia's Minister for Cultural Affairs and Tourism. From beyond the rusty bars of a cell in Monrovia's South Beach prison, facing the Atlantic Ocean, I can now try to piece together all the circumstances leading to the violent storm which nearly tore off the roofs from many houses in the Dewoan country one bright Sunday morning in the year 1957. It rose over the discovery in a cassava patch of the mutilated body of Tene, the daughter of a well-known Dowoan family who live in Bendabi, just a stone's throw from Amina, the former paramount chief's town, 20 miles from Monrovia on the Monrovia-Bomi Hills motor road. Like dry-time thunder, Tane's murder shocked everyone in the area. The news spread throughout the countryside like wildfire. A few hours following the discovery, hundreds of horrified persons had arrived on the scene to get a glimpse of the corpse. Mothers made it a point to bring along adolescent daughters, cautioning them in these terms. You see, when we old people tell you children to listen to your parents, you say this is a new age. The person who killed this child is a madman. And then the second excerpt I'll be reading is by Amadou Hampâté Bâ, and it's from the Living Tradition. Amadou Hampâté Bâ was a Malian writer, historian, and ethnologist. According to Yale University, Bâ was regarded as a sage of African literature, collecting many works of ancestral cultural heritage. Bâ was also elected to the executive board of UNESCO. There he pronounced his famous phrase to defend oral heritage. In my country, every time an old man dies, a whole library has burned down. Bâ dedicated his life to protecting Africa's ancestral heritage through literary collections and converting traditional knowledge to text. When we speak of African tradition or history, we mean oral tradition, and no attempt at penetrating the history and spirit of the African peoples is valid unless it relies on that heritage of knowledge of every kind, patiently transmitted from mouth to ear, from master to disciple, down through the ages. This heritage is not yet lost, but lies there in the memory of the last generation of great depositories, of whom it can be said, they are the living memory of Africa. In the modern nations, where what is written has precedence over what is spoken, where the book is the principal vehicle of the cultural heritage, there has been a long-standing notion that peoples without writing are peoples without culture. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sydney Haynes. I'm studying middle and high school English education here as well as literary studies. I am a senior, so I'll be student teaching in the spring. I'm from a tiny town in Kansas that I will forever call my home, and I plan to return home to teach English at either the high school or middle school level. I look forward to sharing my passion for the never-ending possibilities that studying language and literature provides. My hope is that I can help students realize they are capable of loving English and reading, and that every single one of them have intelligent things to say. The first selection that I am reading is by Ibrahim Bangura. He is an associate professor in the Department of Peace and Conflict Studies at the University of Sierra Leone. Bangura holds a bachelor's degree in political science and history and a master's degree in gender studies from the University of Sierra Leone. Another master's degree in international development studies from the University of Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and a doctorate degree in economics from the Leipzig Graduate School of Management in Germany. He has published many articles, essays, and poems detailing life in Sierra Leone, and has been presented with awards for his work. Additionally, since 2010, Ibrahim has been working as a consultant for European Union-funded projects and programs. He has monitored and evaluated EU-funded programs and projects for more than 30 countries in Africa. This is Have Seen It All by Ibrahim Bangura. I have seen enough blood to appreciate peace. I have seen enough human loss to appreciate life. I have seen enough trouble to appreciate calm. I have tasted raw hate to appreciate love. I have heard so many curses to appreciate blessings. I have heard so many woes to appreciate appreciation. I have tasted enough bitterness to appreciate sweetness. I have seen enough frowns to appreciate smiles. I have heard many condemnations to appreciate praises. I have been pushed too far to appreciate hugs. I have been in the darkness too long to appreciate light. I have been in the cold too long to appreciate warmth. I have been afraid too long to appreciate confidence. I have lost so much to appreciate winning. I have heard so much noise to appreciate quiet. I have left myself behind too long to appreciate loving myself. The next selection that I will be reading is by Mariama Ba. She was a Senegalese author and feminist. Ba wrote 2 French-language novels that were translated into over a dozen languages, including So Long a Letter, translated from its original French, a novel that expressed her frustration with the fate of African women. The semi-autobiographical epistolary novel was awarded the first Noma Award for Publishing in Africa in 1980. She also wrote articles, essays, and periodicals pushing for women's rights and an end to colonialism in Africa. Ba also founded a women's organization and was a member of a volunteer organization which focused on education for women and girls. This is an excerpt from So Long a Letter by Mariama Ba. Friendship has splendors that love knows not. It grows stronger when crossed, whereas obstacles kill love. Friendship resists time, which wearies and severs couples. It has heights unknown to love. You, the goldsmith's daughter, gave me your help while depriving yourself. And I learned to drive, stifling my fear. The narrow space between the wheel and the seat was mine. The flattened clutch glided in the gears. The brake reduced the forward thrust, and, to speed along, I had to step on the accelerator. I did not trust the accelerator. At the slightest pressure from my feet, the car lurched forward. My feet learned to dance over the pedals. Whenever I was discouraged, I would say, "Why should Benetou sit behind a wheel and not I?" I would tell myself, "Don't disappoint, Isatou. I won this battle of nerves in sang-froid. I obtained my driving license and told you about it. I told you. And now, my children on the back seat of the cream-colored Fiat 125. Thanks to you, my children can look the affluent mother-in-law and the fragile child in the eye in the streets of the town." Modou, surprised, unbelieving, inquired into the source of the car. He never accepted the true story. Like Modou's mother, he too believed that a goldsmith's daughter had no heart. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Gabriella Sanger. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. I'm a junior here, and I'm majoring in English Literary Studies, and I plan on attending grad school when I finish. I am the Sigma Tau Delta Secretary, and I have been since April, and I'm also the founder and president of our Latin American Student Alliance on campus. The first poem I'm reading is going to be from Adamu ID, and he is a poet and novelist from Niger. He was born on November 22nd in 1951, and he left his hometown in Niamey to study public administration in France. He served as a government official and international relations, and he published his first collection of poems in 1984. His first novel was published in 1987, and he won his first Nigerian National Nobel Poetry Prize in 1981. The selection I have chosen for him is I'm Scared. I'm scared. Yes, I do not conceal it from you. I say it. I'm scared. I'm scared of all the anthems you sing, elixirs vomit noisily, brought forward. I'm scared of your flags cracking in the wind of your madness. I'm scared. To you I confess my fear. I'm scared of your erected tents, sparse and flowered gardens. I'm scared of your adult games in the pedestrian corridors. I know that one day you will shoot me. I'm scared. Yes, I confess my fear. I'm scared of your gloved hands, holding numerous cactus. I'm scared when a child claims for life in his cold cradle. I'm scared when he shows ecstasy. I know that one day you will shoot him. The second poem I have chosen is from Toyin Adewale Gabriel, who was born in 1969. She is a poet and literary critic for The Guardian, Post Express, and Daily Times. She writes in both English and German, and she was born in Abuja, Nigeria. She attended Obafemi Awolowo University, where she received her MA Lit degree, and she was the co-founder and coordinator for many years of the Association of Writers in Nigeria. The poem I have selected is Friday Night Live. Our dreams are hide and sights traveling to the people underneath the earth, journeying down the cities, filling the centuries with suns so fat they can't pass the needle's eye. Only the ointment keeps faith in the hands of a daughter preparing you for burial. The unleavened bread calls forth mourners and prostitutes eating bread with hollow hands. Henna mingles with hunger at the 11th hour when rejected pebbles fall like death sentences on brown earth. This wine sets my eyes on edge to stilled waters of barren hillsides. This red wine in a cup, the scarlet thread, the broken donkey, linen breeches dyed in crimson. The air is rich in prophecies and revolutions within the olive tree, and copulation is aflame, burning the bush full of grass widows, and light shimmers upon the waters. Light is a quiver of arrows. Light is an earthquake. Light is a stormy wind. Light is a great cry, electric on bones and skulls. The bones are diving for flesh. The shrouds are dying in the stars. There is light on our loins.
Hello, my name is Mai. I am a sociology major. This is my second year here at Missouri Southern, but my first here in Missouri. I'm originally from California, but I am from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm a first generation from both of my parents and 7 of my siblings. I am the youngest. Okay. The first selection is by Triphonia. My apologies for my pronunciation. Triphonia Melby Obono is a genuine Guinean author, journalist, political scientist, LGBTQ activist, professor, and research specializing in gender, women's issues in Africa. She has taught literature and social sciences at the National University of Equatorial Guinea since 2013 and is a part of the Afro-Hispanic Studies Center. Obono has published several books and short stories, including the literary anthologies concerned with women's rights, gender issues within the Equatorial Guinea. She's the author of 2 novels, the Hensira de Guinean D and La Bastarda, which we will hear today, is the first novel written by a female Equatorial Guinea writer to be translated in English. She says that at the university, she could not find answers to the questions she has internalized since she was a child. But her studies equipped her to the scientific tools to investigate. She understood that the cultural silence is designated to the women. It is a strategy for the subnuration of women. Chapter 2 of The Mad Woman. Osiah had not just come to the kitchen to order me to stop looking for my father. No, after several hours of venerating his male ancestors, he calmed down and ceasing to gesticulate with his hands approached the hearth, where he tenderly called me granddaughter. The use of that term meant he was going to ask me for a favor. A favor from my granddad? I worried, tugging at the uncomfortable braids my grandmother had made with fine thread 3 days before. I hated them. I wanted to live with my head shaved, without so much fuss, but my grandmother forbade it. Since a woman should always be beautiful and never ask questions, I became an adult as soon as I got my period. But my grandfather began to give me responsibilities, but never any affectionate kisses, though I was always showered with them by my mother's cousins whenever he visited. Uncle Marcelo was an isolated man who lived outside of society. Because he was a female or man-woman, the men of the tribe accused of him of this both place in public and in private, due to his unmanly nature and above all his failure to consummate of the marriages arranged for him. The older men shouted at him in the house of the word, "You are not a man. A man sleeps with the woman and fathers children."
My grandmother told Marcelo's dwelling was cursed because he took in people who were not at all normal. Whenever he came to the village, he looked for me, gave me a kiss, and he took me wherever I asked him to. It was rumored that he could be my father. It was clear that he was hiding something. It felt I needed to know the only problem in the world who had kissed me like a father was facing. I hoped that one day he'd tell me who my real father was, so I could go and find him. But when I asked, he always fell silent. Ask your grandparents was all he said. From Chapter 3 in Decency Club, I understand what it meant to be a man. If in the past I thought it was enough to have genitals tingling between one's leg, now I wasn't so sure, because Uncle Marcelo's were like that too. But nobody in the village considered him as a man. He would be the perfect man to be the one who fathered children? Of course not, I answered myself. My father had done that, but in my grandmother's opinion, he couldn't be considered a man because he was proven himself unable to impose within his family. Would a man be someone who subdued or dominated others? I didn't know, and I tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep, until I saw a vision of my mother walking before me. I followed her in silence without asking about my father. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Emily Moore. I am currently a junior, English Literary Studies major. I plan to go to graduate school after graduating. My first selection is On Vine Street, Thinking of La Piedra by Patron Henneco. Patron Henneco is a poet, playwright, and English literature and creative writing professor at University de Lome in Togo. His poems have appeared in several anthologies and poetry magazines and journals. He is the author of 8 books of poetry, play, short stories. Henneco has been awarded several awards and distinctions for his work, including being in 2018 African American Fellow at the Palm Beach Poetry Festival in Delray, Florida, and a 2018 Fulbright Fellow to University of Nebraska. This is On Vine Street, Thinking of La Piedra by Patron Henneco. First they lodged themselves against the August windows, those furious October winds that denude the trees of their leaves, stripping their fingers bare to dwindle in the cold, without a scrap of clothing to cover their bitterness. Then they leave for elsewhere, as soon as October opens its door, for winter to emerge, under a sky which seems like a face, a crystal mask with eye holes, blocked by white snow. My smile nailed to lips about to crack, my runny nose teasing glacial winds with scents, tropical memories. I go down Vine Street, working my fingers inside my pockets to embroider small bits of sunshine. La Piedra of all heat. Okay, and my second selection is an excerpt from So Distant from My Life by Monique Ilibudo. Burkina Faso author and human rights activist Monique Ilibudo is the first Bernake woman to publish a novel. Her works include 3 novels, including the work So Distant from My Life that I'll be reading from today. Her human rights activism prioritizes African American women with persistent reminders that the African experience is not monolithic and transcends that false narrative, and has used her activism to champion political change via her previous position as Minister for the Promotion of Human Rights. From Chapter 2, Shame doesn't kill. We would know if it did. And yet, they say he died of shame. When I opened my email yesterday, I had first jumped with joy. An email from Marte after such a long silence. For some weeks, I had no news from my sister, since she was traveling in remote regions, not connected to the World Wide Web. I jumped with joy when I saw her email with the subject, News. She should have written bad news, as I understood from her first sentence. Papa is gone. She lay out everything. The sudden death without any apparent cause. The unanimous diagnosis. Died from shame. My father was gone, and they say he died of shame. What did they know? Had they done an autopsy? Which organ did shame attack? The liver, the heart, or the kidneys? My father was dead, and I was not there to bury him. My father and I had become strangers to each other. I had tried to talk to him, going through my mother, my sister, or some compliant visitor whom I could call to pass the phone to my father without success. Toward the end, when the news of my betrayal was confirmed, he uttered ritual words of banishment. Until then, he had given me the benefit of the doubt. He had continued to go to the neighborhood savings and loans union to withdraw the money I sent by rapid transfer. I wasn't yet married, and he gave little weight to the gossip lashed by sharp tongues. Jealous people, thundered my father in a stentorian voice when I called. My son, follow your path. I am telling you this. Your old man has faith in you. Let them bray, he concluded, stretching out this last word in his inimitable fashion. I never had the courage to tell him he was wrong.
Hi everyone, my name is Madison Ditzler. I'm the president of Sigma Tau Delta as well as an editor for Bordertown, MSSU's literary magazine, and I also run Bordertown social media, so shameless self-plug, give us a follow at MSSU Bordertown if you aren't already. I'm a senior majoring in literary studies. I actually graduated last semester with my bachelor's in professional technical writing, but I'm a little greedy and I decided I wanted to take a few more classes before I went off to get my MFA in poetry. The first author that I will be reading from today is Amilcar Cabral. Born in 1924, Amilcar Cabral was an agricultural engineer, revolutionary socialist, activist, anti-colonial theorist, poet, and most importantly, he was a significant Guinea-Bissau author who fought for the country's liberation from Europe. He was assassinated at only 49 years old in 1973, just months before the country's liberation from Europe, and before the independence forces were declared victorious, and thus he gave his life to fight for the country's independence. He co-founded the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, where he led their guerrilla movement and directed the War of Liberation until his death. Cabral dreamed of seeing no one excluded from society. Angela Davis is quoted saying that figures like Amilcar Cabral helped us to imagine the horizons of freedom in far broader terms than were available to us through what we now call civil rights discourse. This is his poem, No Poetry. No poetry. Do not hide within the inscrutability of my soul. Do not run away from life itself. Break the invisible bars of my prison. Open wide the doors of my being. Come out. Come out to struggle. Life is a struggle. The men outside call for you, and you, poetry, you are also a man. Love everyone's poetry. Love men. Let your poems flow to every race, to all things. Merge with me. O poetry, take my arms to embrace the world. Give me your arms to embrace life. I am my own poetry. The next author I'll be reading from is Kobe Benben. He was born and raised in Ghana. He is an author and a prominent book reviewer. He runs the Ghana Must Read website as well as the African Book Club. His most well-known work is his debut novel, No One Dies Yet, published in 2023. His intention with No One Dies Yet was to write a book with flawed gay characters and an anti-hero trope. He states, I don't think there is a book, even in Africa, that writes queer characters to be human, to be flawed. You have these queer characters that fit these media-friendly narratives. I didn't want to write a queer character like that. I never wanted to write a character that was palatable to the Western audience. He aims to challenge traditional views, traditional narratives in African literature by exploring taboo subjects like queer sexuality, moving beyond the typical focus of colonialism, slavery, and patriarchal structures. Here is an excerpt from his novel, No One Dies Yet. Independence came and left. Colonization left and came. Harry came and left. It was we who killed Harry. We saw him the moment his flight squatted and spilled its stairs across our tarmac. Bird, this man, hauling little luggage of silver spoons and swaddled in that milky, not-from-here scent. Eyes an innocent blue. Beheld this motherland as if some prenatal prophecy permitted him possession of her. Cocky and colicky, the result of a disturbance that rammed his head farther up his ass. Tossed onto us after some white land's postpartum disappointment. We listened to his slow, deliberate, dum-dum footfalls, creating gaping wounds in the skulls of our brothers buried beneath. Whenever his kind stepped on our soil, we cried from unrest. We slammed the roofs of our graves like disgruntled kids kicking up a fuss. If only we could puncture the earth's surface and wrench him down here with us. But we are powerless, so we watched him. Harry's eyes had never met Africa. Still, he and his kind came with their conceptions passed down from old sailors' songs. Songs about indigenous peoples whose lives were dissected wing after wing, one antenna after the other, like an insect tortured at the hands of a fascinated child. Songs with ludicrous lyrics. Oh, what bare land and deep evil forests. Oh, what dark men swinging from the branches of trees, clothed in leaves, hooting at each other and hunting wildlife, running amok, then jumping onto the saddles of elephants, gifted them at birth. Violence is what built this city. Violence was the navigating ships teeming with the Harrys of this world. Violence was the vice that infiltrated our culture. It was the spices and the resources stolen. It was the mice that scurried across the indigenes piled one on top of the other, dead. When the locals sought to push back the invaders, violence raised the buildings, the trade routes, it raised the funds to build torture sites for them. Yet Harry sat back in his hotel, oblivious to the violence that had preceded him, as those too were exempted from the gospels of the sailors. The images of men being beaten to death would scar his memory. Savages, he might have called us. Do we need to give more reasons why we killed Harry? Is violence not what begets violence? What more motivation did we need? Maybe if you considered Harry a symbol and not human, he, violence, like hungry canines we unleashed on him, would be stomachable. We are dead anyway. We need vessels to act on our behalf. We need you. If you heard our pleas in your dreams, would you refuse us? Who watches his brothers cry in agony and refuses to help? We would drown you in our pain, shock you with our voices. You would try to resist. We are stronger. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Isabel Walker. I am the Sigma Tau Delta's current social media coordinator and public relations representative. I actually graduated in December of 2024 with my BA in English Literary Studies, minors in Sociology and Creative Writing, and the Linguistics Certificate. Because of my love of literature, the Literature and Language Department and Sigma Tau Delta, I am still involved on campus and have taken additional English classes in preparation for grad school. While unsure of my career path, I intend to attend grad school with the hope of obtaining a career that aligns with my desire to use my privilege to help develop a future that allows all people, especially those with marginalized identities, to thrive. My first selection is by Abalawa Salim. Benin Republic LGBTQ+ activist Abalawa Salim is both a published author and poet. Her autobiographical short story, End of the Tunnel, describes the traumatic experiences she faced because of her queer identity, including religious violence, family disownment, unlawful arrest, and employment discrimination. But she ultimately ends on a proclamation of hope for all queer people. Salim received an honorary mention for this short story in the writing contest for queer West African women. I am different. That's what people would like me to say, so as not to offend the most sensitive. Being different is easier. It gives a more lyrical air. It is more intriguing than I'm a lesbian, for that's what I am. I am different is neither true nor false. It's like an attempt at modesty in the face of the reality of things, a way of not arousing animosity and not getting lynched, while at the same time arousing interest. Arousing the curiosity of the person you're talking to and thus preparing the ground before dropping what many consider to be a bomb. I've been carrying my bomb since my early teens, or should I say that I am the bomb itself. I now believe that this kind of thing never stays hidden for very long, or that no matter how hard you try to hide it, the truth eventually comes out. That's often when the bomb goes off, wreaking havoc. It blows us up in our tracks, and we have no way of escaping the slaughter. I was soon a persona non grata in the area. I was the person to be avoided like the plague, the messenger of the devil. I didn't have any trouble feeling this abrupt isolation. I might have been free to move around, but I was under quarantine. I gave the impression that I didn't care, but I was in great pain. Behind my indifferent look and a semblance of routine was a deep pain. To be looked at as an animal, to be judged constantly for something I hadn't totally chosen, to be seen as a drug addict, as possessed, and so on, was hurting me. I am aware that I am not the only one who has experienced and is experiencing such things in the context of my sexual orientation or gender identity. However, I can't help but dream of a day when we are all finally accepted despite our differences, and people understand that their prejudices about the LGBTQI community are wrong. A day when laws are passed to give us security and spare us trauma. Until that dream comes true, for now, I work with LGBTQI organizations that help those who have nowhere to go because they have been disowned by their families after coming out. Although the picture looks bleak, I believe there is hope. And then my second selection, Gambian poet Kweku Abimbola earned his MFA in poetry from the University of Michigan. His debut poetry collection, Saltwater Demands a Psalm, received the first book award from the Academy of American Poets in 2022. Abimbola's poetic intentions are to investigate, quote, colonization, Black mourning, Black boyhood, gender politics, and the spiritual consequences of climate change in West Africa. He is currently an assistant professor of English and creative writing at Loyola Marymount University and serves as the poet laureate of El Segundo, California. This poem is entitled Memeneda for Sandra Annette Ama Bland. Sky, everything under the universe and over earth, cloud water, sound water, Ama Kwame. Ama played the trombone, the only wind instrument and harmonic to human voice, the only wind instrument and harmonic to her voice. Ama played the trombone, sang its brass to gold. She belted up a storm with the Prairie View A&M marching panthers doused in purple and gold. Her trombone kept her water, especially after a 2-day practices before opening day or homecoming. When the horn section honed its high-stepping filing and refiling into pristine rows, her horn kept her water, funneling sweat coaxed from her lips to the South Texas sun through a globby mouthpiece. It kept and carried her air, viscous from perspiring lungs through the silver mouthpiece, through the aching horn. It kept and carried all this water in the horn's spit valve until its brass airways gurgled. Then she'd punch the water key, allowing her water to pulse out, arching, long as the arm slide of her Conn-Selmer trombone. It is impossible to get it all out. After a decade of use, films of water glaze her horn's interior, such that Ama cannot voice a note without just a little water speaking too. Ama, Ama, the first name of God, air to water, water to melody, melody to air. When we say it is water, say that it is water. Kani Din, say her name, say her name. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate you being here, and I hope maybe you're inspired to go find some West African literature to read for yourself. You'll see that the students have selected a starting point for you on the back of your brochure, so if you aren't sure where to go, this might be some suggestions for you, but there's a lot more out there. And now we have refreshments in the room behind us, thanks to Amber Carr, so I hope you'll be able to join us for that and keep the conversation going. Thank you.